Hi YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. I am your host, Megan, aka Spirit, and today we are talking all about rituals. Hi YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. This is Megan, aka Spirit, and I'm very sorry that I was not with you last week. I was actually in the process of preparing to get married. Yep, that's right, I got married. So, I was the day before my wedding last Friday, and I had way too much to do, and it completely slipped my mind. So hopefully you can forgive me. But this week I wanted to be able to get on and talk to you guys a little bit about this week's topic. So the topic is all about rituals, and mainly how we start and stop our rituals, or start and end our rituals. And as most of you, if you've been watching me at all, probably know, I'm a hereditary witch. I'm not going to be able to show you that. That's not something that I can do. I can't show you a ritual that I do. I can't even tell you like the specific words or things like that. So what I thought I would do, since we did a public ritual, a public hand fasting for our wedding, because we had so many friends and people who were not of the same faith, we did a kind of conglomeration type ceremony. So I thought I would tell you a little bit about how we went about our wedding ceremony. So it was a ritual, so that works. So the way that we did everything was we started out, so we actually have a fire pit, so it was in our backyard. I mean, a fire going in the fire pit, and there's a stone bench right by that fire pit for everybody to enjoy, and we used that stone bench as the altar. And we've done this many times before for Samhain and things like that. So we had a PVC pipe, I guess, that we put into the ground that held up two fallen trees. And inside, or I guess between those two fallen trees, we hung a lace tablecloth that was my grandmother's. And it was very important. And so that hung between them, and we had some sheer white curtains that kind of came out to the side of it, and it created a very nice frame around us. So then we had, from there, if you kind of picture if that was here, we had all of the seating like this. So there was an aisle down the center, and then all the seating was around it, kind of in a little semicircle. And it was beautiful. And so we had two lanterns at the beginning of the aisle. And inside we put sage, so that as people walked down the aisle and then filtered to their seats, they were smudged with the sage. So this way it wasn't, somebody didn't have to stand there and smudge them, and also it was a little bit more benign, so that in case there were people who maybe didn't want to be, exactly smudged, it still cleansed the entire area. So that was really nice. And it worked really well, and it smelled great and kept the mosquitoes away, so that worked out well. So we began, so our high priestess who performed the ritual, she was down inside the center circle. So she did a full circle around the entire ceremony, everyone. However, we did have sort of a mini sort of inner sanctum circle for us and for the bridal party. So she stood down by the fire, and we had our procession in. So we had our flower girls come in. We had, our men of honor, our brothers, both our brothers, and we had then our matrons of honor and our maids of honor, and then our matrons of honor. And then we both came down the aisle with our fathers. And we did this separately, one at a time. And then we met around sort of the backside. So there was the fire, there was the stone bench, which was the altar. Then behind it was a space, and then there was the trees with our lace tablecloth. So we were sort of in that space in between. And that's where I had a book stand for my family's book as well. For those of you that saw the Book of Shadows video, you know my book is large. So we needed its own book stand to have a special place in the circle. So that was our space. Everything that we needed was on the altar. So we had a cord that we made ourselves that was going to be used to tie knots. It's very similar to a traditional hand fasting. However, in my family's tradition, knots are tied in a cord, but then the knots are never untied. Those knots remain, and that's something that the couple keeps then, and those knots stay there as a permanent reflection of the vows that are made. So then we also had a broom that we had wood burned ourselves with different things that meant a lot to us. We also had different things on the altar that are important to my tradition. For example, would be a candle representing the god and the goddess. So things like that. So once everybody kind of came down, they all had their positions. So we had our brothers and our maids of honor read for the different quarter calls. So this is where we kind of incorporated some more traditional, kind of classic, I guess if you'd say, pagan elements, some more typical pagan elements. We had the quarters be called. What was very important for me was that the ancestors are called. That was part of my family's tradition, is calling the ancestors and calling the clan mothers. So as many of you know, I'm Mohawk, Kanesatake, and so I'm Bear Clan, and that was very important to include that in our ritual. We also then had a wonderful reading for my mother. She gave a Mohawk blessing to us that my grandmother would have wanted to give. And so that was beautiful in the middle of everything. We also then had very specific vows that we did. And part of those things are acknowledging that there can be trouble. For example, there was a time in which our high priestess asked us, you know, might you cause her anger? And the answer is, I might. And then the response to that, is that your intention? No. And so then we talk about, will you transform that anger into growth and other things into joy? And we say, yes, we will. So, there's a point in which the vows become very serious and really reflect what it means to have a true marriage. And that is that it's never going to be perfect. We're never going to be, perfect people who never make any mistakes. But the idea is that we are willing to grow together and willing to learn and willing to put in the work. And so that was really important. So we really began the ritual by having the quarters called, by calling the god and goddess, addressing the ancestors and the clan mothers. Our high priestess then walked around the entire circle and then put up the circle. That's very important. If you're not putting up a circle, if you're not putting up the energy that's creating that sacred space, then you can run into some problems with different things. So I really recommend focusing on making sure that you're able to put up a circle around everything that you're doing. And we asked all of the attendants to our ceremony, to our ritual, that once the circle is cast, then they remain in their seats until it's taken down, and then no one leave unless they let us know. And so from there, we also had our own vows, and we did do some traditional things like rings, and we were able to also jump the broom, which was a fun tradition that we like to have in there. So there were some absolutely beautiful moments. It was breathtaking. We also did quarter blessings as well, and we also released the quarters. We also did a chalice blessing, where the entire community of all of our guests were able to send good intentions and positive thoughts and wishes to us, to a chalice that we then were able to drink from. So that was really beautiful as well. So we absolutely loved our wedding. It was phenomenal and so exciting, and at the end of this video, I'll put a picture in. We don't have the pictures completely yet from our photographer, but we have a couple little ones that friends took and stuff. So I'll sneak those in at the end. But that's what we did for a ritual. I think that for me, the ancestors, I would say, is probably my #1 focus when I do ritual. So I can kind of say that part. My faith is not completely ancestor based. It's also very elementally based. However, ancestors are probably one of the most primary parts of my faith. So I would encourage you, if you are looking into ways to start your own ritual, if you feel inclined, find your connection to your ancestors, to the ancestor spirits, commune with them, and be able to build a relationship with them, because it's a wonderful tool to use for ritual, and it can really bring a lot to your practice. So I think that's about it. I'm looking, yeah, it says unique tips. I think I gave most of what I can. As far as filming rituals go, which is what Kara asked, again, we don't film rituals. We did film our wedding, and I haven't decided yet if I want to post that. I might once we get all the footage back and things, just because that was more of a public ritual and not a personal family tradition, solely family tradition ritual. So I haven't decided yet. Let me know, thumbs up if this video, if you would like to see the wedding video. So that way I'd know. Alright guys, so I will leave you here. I'll put the pictures at the end, and as always guys, blessed be.